Hello, hello. Welcome into our second episode of Well Read, Well Said. This is the episode where we will do our deep dive discussion into our book for this month, for the month of April, which is, ta-da, It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. They have the actual book.
On cue.
Both of them. And I have,
what's this
I have the
back here?
Kindle
My
version.
Oh, I thought that was a Kindle.
Here's the Kindle. Mine has a case on it. So yeah, we're so excited to be here for this second episode. I want to talk a little bit about our Facebook group that we also have going on. If you're not in the Facebook group, you should really join.
How many people are in there now?
1,500 members.
That's a lot.
In our Facebook group. It is a lot of fun. We have a post almost every day, sometimes 3 times a day, depending on
what we want to talk about.
Yeah, what we want to talk about. There's
There it
clips,
is.
there's videos, we do polls. You can see right there, we have chapter check-ins. So it's a lot of fun. We're pretty involved in that as well. How do you guys
I like seeing what people are saying.
Yeah.
I like interacting with people. Everybody's so nice and polite. And
That is one thing we noticed. All these readers are just so nice.
yeah.
I'm glad there's an appetite for it. I mean, I think we got up to like 1,400 within maybe a week and a half.
Yeah, and we were all kind of really shocked that there were so many people.
And there's authors in there too who are posting about their books.
And so it gives us other things to read and talk about. So it's really fun. It's not just a discussion about the book that we're talking about. There's lots of other things.
There's something for everybody in there.
Yeah, going on in there. So we know that we're going to start this discussion, but before we get too deep into the discussion, we want to start our episode with a trivia question. So here's how it'll work. Each episode will have a trivia question. It will be a bookish trivia question. So think maybe the genre that we're reading this month, or maybe the author that we're reading, which is what today's question is. So we'll ask the question a couple times throughout the episode, and then we'll give everyone the answer at the end of the show. So today's question is, we can pull it up. Before becoming a full-time author, what was Colleen Hoover's profession? Okay.
Okay, we're not supposed to guess that? Okay.
No. I mean, if you guys have an idea right now, you can spitball some things, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Okay.
I don't want to give up anything.
Oh, okay.
No idea?
Do you know?
Okay.
I was going to say maybe like a librarian or a social worker or something.
Okay.
I'm going to say she was in something like hospitality, like worked at a restaurant or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
All
You're
different
gonna
guesses.
think on that one. Okay, you're gonna. That's fine. We got some time to.
I thought this was going to be
stew
a
on it,
multiple
yeah.
choice, and you'd
No.
That would
I
be
mean, maybe,
easier.
Maybe sometime I'll do a multiple choice.
Okay.
But right now we're gonna do this. It's very open-ended. So.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to the next thing. We've got some housekeeping items that we also want to get to before we dive into today's discussion of Colleen Hoover's It Ends With Us. We want to give everyone a quick heads up about the episode. It will contain spoilers. So this is for anyone who has not read the book yet. We will be talking about the themes, the characters, the ending, basically everything. So if you don't want to be spoiled, if you haven't read the book, stop right now. Definitely pause. Come back to this after you grab your copy and you finish the book. It's definitely worth the read. We don't want to give anything away for someone who is maybe interested in reading the book. So for those of you who have read the book, you can continue on with us. If you don't care about the spoilers, you can also continue with us as well. So lots of things to unpack. We're excited to share all of our thoughts with all of you. So this is your official spoiler warning.
We also wanted to let you know too, there's some discussion in here about domestic violence. So we have a warning, heavy sensitive topics, domestic abuse, toxic relationships, emotional trauma. So that might be difficult or triggering for people who maybe have experienced that or are sensitive to those topics. So we want you to take care of yourself. Feel free to skip this episode if you need to. And then watch when you're in a safe headspace because our well-being. Your well-being is what matters the most.
And we also recognize that this, as we mentioned, is a heavy story. So if you or someone you know is in this situation, there is help. If you're in the Toledo area, there's multiple domestic violence shelters like the YWCA, the Cocoon. You can also call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is at the bottom of your screen right now, 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 7233. You can also text START, the word START, to 88788 or visit thehotline.org to chat online. So with that in mind, let's gently move into our discussion. And this next segment we're calling Naked Truths.
And if you read the book, you would get that.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, I came up with this. As I was reading the book, I felt like this is the part where we're going to kind of share just our all-out thoughts on this. So I feel like Naked Truths is pretty fitting for this because right at the very beginning of this book, we get Naked Truths, and that's kind of how the rest of the book goes. So a little play on words for everyone, so how we rated it. So let's start with just our overall thoughts of the book.
Megan?
I'm resident reader.
Yep, this was my second time reading. And I actually listened to the audiobook instead of reading with my eyes. And I gave this book a 4-star rating. I think when I first read it, I gave it a 5 stars. But now that I've read a lot, my tastes have changed. I kind of lowered my rating just a little bit. It was still a good story. I think it shares a lot of good messages and lessons. And I still really enjoyed the characters. So overall, I enjoyed the book.
Mm-hmm.
Megan?
Are we giving our rating? We're not giving our...
No, don't give your rating yet.
Okay.
Don't give your rating yet. Megan already.
I did.
I read, this is my third time reading it.
Oh.
Only because I read it like forever ago when it like first, or when we all started reading Colleen Hoover here. This was like one of the ones we all read together.
Yeah.
And then when I found out the movie was coming out, I read it like right before I went and saw the movie. And then I read it again this past week for our thing here. I really like it. I think it's, for me, I cared so deeply for Lily. Like I wanted her to be okay, that like, I just remember, I remember specifically the first time reading it, I was just so worried about her after like something happened, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen again. And I was just so deeply worried that she wasn't gonna be okay, and then it kept happening, and I was just like concerned for her, and I just wanted to keep reading to make sure she was going to make it and have her happy ending. Just like wanted her to be okay. And that never, even after my third time, like I knew what was coming, but I still was like
Anxious.
Yeah, I was like anxious about it. I just remember just like being like, oh my God, I just hope she's going to be all right.
I love that she was a really strong character and that she stopped the cycle of what had happened to her mother. And I think the way that she did it in announcing or in asking for the divorce right after she had her baby with Ryle was a really strong moment. And I think that Colleen Hoover did a great job of explaining and showing that this is not an easy decision. There's a lot of emotional trauma that goes into this abuse, and she felt very connected. And the guilt that a mother feels about separating the family, I thought was great. I don't think it should win any literary awards. No. The writing isn't, way up there. Like to your point, there's a lot of other really great books out there, but I think just based on things I've seen online, and I hope that it's helped people,
Have that courage to either stop it or talk to somebody about it, or... One
of the things though that I was thinking, I think we've talked about this a lot, and I don't know how I feel about it, but I think that and this is maybe a thing about romance books, or maybe it goes into the fantasy of it, but I feel like sometimes when I'm reading a Colleen Hoover book, I get like upset at like my husband, because I'm like,
why isn't he Atlas?
Why isn't he coming over to just give me a hug in the middle of the day? Or why isn't he saving the writings of years ago?
Right.
Or
carving you a heart out of wood,
cooking me a homemade meal and bringing it to dinner.
Perfect.
So it's very unrealistic. I mean, raise your hand if you've ever had a boyfriend or a man do any of these things. So it definitely, listen, I think a lot of men benefit from women reading these books, But I wonder if a woman just turns to her husband and says, "You've never done this for me."
Where is my gourmet meal? Just
Dropped off to the workplace for me
I
and
wake up
my
and
friends.
smell toast for you.
Thank you. Yeah. I kind of felt the same. This is my second time reading it. I listened through part of it. I definitely like reading it better than listening to it. I just feel like I miss some things when I listen to it. But I still kind of feel the same, if not better, about the book reading it the second time. The first time I kind of feel like I sped through it because it was really at the beginning of my reading journey. And now that I read so much more, I'm able to pick up on things. I felt things a little bit different and deeper this second time around.
Do you feel like, since it's been in the media so much, and that's one of the reasons we picked this first book, by the way, do you think that, for me, I kind of did read it as a romance the first time around, and now the domestic violence really was the main theme for me, and now that I look at the movie, I'm like, how can you market it as a romance?
Yes.
It's heavy.
It
It is. I mean, and if you're someone who reads it solely as a romance, you may not pick up on those things at the very beginning, because they're there at the very beginning.
I think that's why I was so concerned the first time reading it, because I had no idea that was coming, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh no, now I'm worried. Like I just want. You're anxious about like what's going to happen.
Okay, so let's go into how we rated the book and why we gave it that rating. So we have Megan at
4.
Alexis.
5 for me. Yeah.
3.
Mel, and I gave it 5 as well, solely just because I really loved it the first time, and I think I kept it at 5 because I loved it just as much the second
I
time.
think that's where I'm at. I mean, even 3 times in, still like it. Would read it again.
It's a great fast read.
Yes.
I think it's a good book, but again, I think, in some of these romances, a couple of the themes are a little cheesy, just for me personally. So yeah, that's why I give it a 3. But it is a good book that you can take 2 days to read. And then after this, I went and read the sequel. I don't know if you guys know there's a sequel.
Yeah.
It Starts With Us, and I read that in, 8 hours. So they're very
they're quick.
devourable books, these Colleen Hoover books, if that's what you're into.
How long did it take you
It Ends With Us?
for both of them?
Well, I kind of picked this one up because it's the second time around and I did know what was going to happen. I kind of picked it up and put it down and picked it up. But with the sequel, where it tells more of Lily's story with Atlas from their point of view, that one I finished in hours.
Fast. It took me like 3 days, I think, to finish this book. So
I think for me, it took me a little bit longer. I think it took me like 3 or 4, but that was just because I was listening to it instead of I reading, because I wanted a different experience. And so I wasn't, and because I had read it before, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I need to know what happens, because I knew what was coming.
Right.
So I think it was a little bit easier
Exactly.
to read and get through it because I knew, okay, I know what happens, I know what's coming next, and I could prepare myself for some of the different things that happened.
I was
Is
just like
there-
2 days too.
So we talked about kind of some of our favorite parts. We have some notable quotes real quick that we want to get to. So can we pull up some of those? So Alexis's quote, let's read yours, Alexis.
All humans make mistakes. What determines a person's character aren't the mistakes we make. It's how we take those mistakes and turn them into lessons rather than excuses.
And
That was
Lily's.
Lily saying that. And I think this was after the first time her and Ryle had an incident. Ryle had an incident with her where she was trying to like wrap her mind around, because her mother had went through this. She was kind of trying to a little bit justify maybe what he was doing and giving him some grace a little bit, like it was a mistake. But she's saying, talking it out with herself, like, is it really a mistake, or is he going to start doing this again and just make excuses for himself? But she was mentally trying to like figure out what was going on.
And process her own feelings.
Her own feelings after, it would just be so much. Like, she has her flashbacks of her mom. She knew everything her mom went through. She did not like her. She despised her dad because of what he had put her mom through. And then for this to happen to her, she had that moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm my mom. I don't want to be my mom in that situation. So like, what do I do now? But still, that was the first time it had happened. So she loved him. She always loved. She loved him no matter, even after the third time it happened with the really, like, the third time was just a lot for me. Like, it was hard to read.
Yeah.
And even then, she said, I love him. And I think that's what you get. You hear that a lot. Like, it's not just easy to leave someone you love, and you do try to justify what's happening, but I'm glad she made the choice that she did and took that step.
Yeah, we have other quotes, but first, okay, we'll get to Megan's real quick. Then we've got to move to our trivia question. So Megan, go to yours.
There is no such thing as bad people. We're all just people who sometimes do bad things. This was said by Ryle, and I think it was the first time they meet. And that just stuck out to me because I think we all, at times in our life do bad things. It doesn't necessarily make us a bad person, but it's how you handle, the consequences of your actions that really matter.
Okay, so we want to get to a break. We'll give you one look at the trivia question real quick. That trivia question is, what was Colleen Hoover's full-time job before becoming an author? What did she do? Okay, we're going to be right back after a break.
Are we
Okay, welcome back in. Thanks so much for being here with us on Well Read, Well Said on WTOL 11 Plus. Now let's get into the nitty gritty. The first, I feel like the most important to talk about is the characters and kind of their growth. The three I feel like we should really just look at is Lily, Atlas, and Ryle. So let's talk about Lily real quick. She is a floral designer. She's an abuse survivor, and she's torn between love and kind of breaking this cycle of abuse. So what are our thoughts on Lily? Did we like her as a character?
How could you not? Yeah, she's so sweet. She took care of Atlas when he was homeless, living in this dilapidated house in the backyard. She, I think, had compassion for her mother when she was a teenager and she was going through the domestic abuse. I think you love that she always held this place for Atlas. She never looked down on him. She missed him. Why didn't he come back for me? And then I think she was a strong business owner, very young in the book. And she fell in love with Ryle, and I like, again, how the character was realistic in the way that you can see her struggling to give that grace. You imagine that she just loves this person, and if he only didn't do this one thing, which again, apparently he did because he had a very tragic situation in his own life with his young brother. That was the excuse that was given. But I just think she just has a lot of empathy for other people, and sometimes that came at a cost to herself. But yeah, she's a very lovable character.
And I think you're able to see her growth throughout the book as well. And I think the first person narrative really helps with that, especially giving the backstory through the letters with Ellen.
But you can see all of those like wonderful parts of her through, when Atlas, I guess again, I'm going into the sequel, but when other people talk about Lily, it's always very positive, caring, warm.
Thoughts for you guys?
I really liked Lily. I think because she witnessed a lot of things with her mom and her dad and the abuse her mom suffered, I think she handled that in a fairly decent way. And her, letters to Ellen DeGeneres, her mantra of just keep swimming, I think she kept a very positive attitude through all of that. And I think it was a real kind of wake-up call, her falling for Ryle and going through a very similar situation to what her mom went through, and coming to the realization that something needs to change, or we're just going to keep going around in circles. Something, I need to do something.
I loved her. She's great. I think what she said with her relationship with Ryle, it made her really understand her mom more. And they had a moment later in the book where because her mom never really talked about what happened. They just kind of like brushed it under the rug, and like when her dad died, like they still never really talked about it. But they did have that moment, I think, when they're getting her nursery ready, the baby's nursery ready, where she finally was like, why did you stay for so long? And she was just like, it was just easier to stay. It'd just be too hard to leave. But then she had this moment with Lily where she was like, don't do that to yourself. Like, I don't want that for you. That's not the kind of love you deserve. And then I think that was like her catalyst of like, no, I'm making the right decision. I respect my mom, and I know it was hard for her, but I'm going to make the right decision for my daughter who is coming.
I also think that her mom made a good point in that conversation where she says, if Ryle really loves you, he wouldn't want you to come back to him.
Yeah. And I
thought that was important.
I think that moves to kind of my next question. Does he really love her? Like, does Ryle really love her?
I think
or
really
is it like the love of the idea of her?
No, I think he really does love her, but he just can't control himself. And I think well, I will say this. I don't think he ever went to any sort of intense therapy or anything in the book.
Yeah, clearly.
He could have done more.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know if it's because he's a neurosurgeon or whatever, I think that he was unwilling to look inside of himself any deeper than using the excuse of this is what happened when I was a kid. But I do think that he really cared for her and really loved her. I just don't think it was going to be enough to do what he needed to do.
And I think one of the things that frustrated me, specifically when things all kind of came crashing down, is they had their biggest fight, and then he flies off, and he's gone. And it's like, okay, how did you help yourself? And he comes back, and Lily blows up on him, and she's like, I deserve an apology.
Right.
And he's like, you don't know how sorry I am. And it's like, okay, how many times can you say sorry?
Right.
Before you just change the behavior.
Yeah.
Right. I also wonder if he was like, he'd seen his sister get married and have a child and thought, I'm a neurosurgeon, this, a wife, kid, happy family, that's what you're supposed to have. So he tried to make it work, but I don't think they were a great fit for each other. And I don't think it, obviously it didn't work between them. But I also think he was maybe a little obsessed with the idea of Lily and would get very jealous, with the magnet, with Atlas at the restaurant,
The magazine.
Yeah.
The phone number in the back of the phone. Do we think that it kind of shows what an abusive relationship looks like in real life? Like the possibilities of what happens in this book?
I think probably to a point, but I think also they are very well off. They have this sister who's her best friend, and his sister, and this lovable Marshall guy, and
Who's a millionaire.
who's multimillionaire. So I think we all have a lot more real aspects to our life. I'm sure most of the people who are living with domestic violence would say they have a lot more challenges going on that were at least highlighted and pointed out.
I think coming to the decision and trying to determine what to do and how to end the cycle, for me, seems realistic. In having, the back and forth between, I really love him, but I can't do this, and my mom went through this.
But let me ask you this, because I'm curious, if there were no Atlas in the picture, would she have said, okay, I'm just gonna go be single, there's no Atlas, goodbye, Ryle?
Yeah,
I think
and
that's
that's the
interesting.
hypothetical. I mean, he provides for her. Ryle provides for her in a lot of ways in the book. So
I just wonder if
think-
there were no Atlas at all in the picture.
I think if there were no Atlas in the picture, I think she would have given him a few more chances than she did. But I think the past with her mom and her dad, the fact they were having a baby together, you know, all of that, and then Atlas on top of it made her think something's got to change, that we can't go on like this.
Well, she always knew something better was out there. Like Atlas is like
Yes.
the better, the good.
Yes.
Like, so she had that in the back of her mind. Like, I don't deserve this. I deserve someone who loves me and treats me with respect.
So let's continue
Because
with
that's what I
Atlas.
think. I think that a lot of people stay because there's a fear of
What are
being
you gonna do?
alone, and
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I think if that character Atlas was not in there, not in the book, it may have been very different.
So was Atlas kind of too perfect? Was he that character that was always going to be the person that she ended going to?
He's the person that you want her to be with.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he had his difficulties. Like he was abused.
He was
homeless.
But then after that, I mean, we don't
turned
know.
his life
You
around.
hear it
for
all
him,
through her perspective
Yeah.
in these letters from Ellen in the backstory, and then all of a sudden he shows up, and Lily's like, "If only you would have come to me a year ago. If only you wouldn't have said there was a Cassie, or you know, I don't know. I
I mean, he's pretty close to perfect. I mean, really. And I did read the sequel. I hope you guys are reading the sequel
Yes,
too, because it's
do.
a lot more about him. But I mean, he really doesn't have a misstep other than he kind of just left her alone for a few years.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
he actually did go back and saw her happy and was like, okay, she's happy. I'm gonna leave again.
Right.
That's true.
He had a book signed from Ellen that he just kept in case.
He loved her, man.
I don't.
She was his person. You gotta believe in love.
Oh God.
kind of too perfect. Okay,
It's a romance novel. There's always a perfect guy.
Yes, you have to sometimes look over those things in a romance book.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit real quick about some of the themes in the book. Trauma and abuse and love and relationships. We know the whole title of this book, It Ends With Us, is breaking that cycle. So how do we feel about how it ends and how she effectively does break that cycle?
I loved it. I love how it ended. Even like the movie, even you haven't seen the movie, but like to a T, that last interaction between when she has the baby and Ryle's there and she says, I want the divorce, they like word for word. It
I
was
think-
exactly the same.
I was really cheering Lily on in that moment when they're in the hospital. She just gave birth, and she poses to Ryle, what would you do if she comes home and says, Daddy, my boyfriend hit me. Daddy, my boyfriend did this to me, you know, and and poses everything Ryle did to her in what if that happened to our daughter? What would you say to her? What would you want her to do? And I think that needed to be done, because if not, Ryle was just going to say, I'll do better, I'll do
would
X,
never.
Y, and yeah.
But he did.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a pivotal moment for both Lily and Ryle, so that
Were you guys shocked the first time you read the book and she pops out the baby and says, I want a divorce?
Want a divorce?
I was just like,
I was like, whoa.
I was like, it's a little bad timing, I thought, but
I was shocked, but
Yeah.
I think it was great too.
Yeah, I really think the book, that whole section shows that you try to grapple with loving someone who hurts you. And I think that's the whole point of this book is like, can you love someone who hurts you? And yes, you can. But how far does that go? How many times can someone hurt you before you realize that you love them enough, but not enough to continue to do it? It's a hard one. It's
Yeah.
hard. So.
And again, he had many other wonderful redeeming qualities. I think the average man doesn't have as many redeeming qualities who's doing this, you know what I mean? It's just not the reality.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the book and the movie.
Okay.
Really quickly, because then we've got to go to a break. But I watched the movie last night, and the first time I watched the movie, I hadn't read the book concurrently, so it had been a while since I read a while since I had read the book and watched the movie. So I thought, oh, that movie was so good. After watching it last night, after rereading, have changed, and I am really frustrated.
But you're not wrong. If you hadn't like read the book and knew all about it and saw the movie, you're like, oh, it's a nice rom-com with some heavy stuff. 'Cause it's not just a rom. You can't call it. It's hard to call it a rom-com because it's heavy.
Yeah.
But it not knowing what happened in the book, you'd be like, oh, I liked that. It was nice. But if you've read the book, you're like, whoa, they changed this.
So were they betting
changed
on
this.
all these people not having read the book when
I
they
don't
said
know.
when Blake Lively said wear your florals and grab your girlfriends and come see it?
I don't know how the way it was promoted is just so icky. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that were changed in the book too that I
The
think
book
are.
was so much better than the movie.
Oh,
in
for
my
sure.
opinion.
But yeah.
But I think there were so many things that were changed that are really integral.
And you're like, why?
You were frustrated a lot, and a lot of people were with the age of Lily.
The age of Lily really, well, the age of all of them really frustrates me because in the book she's 23, and then in the movie she's like 30-ish years. She's not 23. No.
Yeah.
I mean, Blake Lively can't play a
I think
23-year-old.
she's like 35 or something.
Yeah. So like that
37?
frustrated me. I mean, the name of Atlas's restaurant in the book is so important, so central to the entire book, and we just changed it to Roots.
And why? Why?
Because there's the quote in the book where
The root of the
they're
oak
talking about the
tree,
tree
yeah.
and grows
Like,
roots
But
and
why not
whatever.
just go with it?
Go
was
with
all
Bids.
like
Yeah, why
It
can't
was
you
better
call
in
it
Boston.
Bids? Better in
Bids.
Boston.
It's not like it didn't mean anything.
Exactly.
No, 'cause
the
the
magnet
magnet-
says better
the
in
whole-
Boston. All of it.
Yeah.
The whole
Why are you gonna
end,
change
the
that?
whole last fight between them stemmed from the magnet and the review and the name of the, and they changed
But what
the whole
about
thing.
there was a lot of controversy about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds changing, like totally rewriting the rooftop scene. Did you feel like it was super different in the movie than the book?
I actually
I don't think it was that different,
similar.
but
It was.
I watched-
changed, not entirely
Yeah.
though. There were. I mean,
The parts that needed to be hit on were there, like the naked truths. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
And him kicking the chair because he was
mad.
and because then they
The
go back
first
to like
sign of
why.
What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and that's the foreshadowing right there in the book and in the movie.
He
I
starts
mean, the
off
very first
angry.
time you meet Atlas, he's kicking and beating up a chair. So.
I feel like Ryle had a lot of red flags in the
Oh, he
book
did.
Yeah.
that Lily overlooked, and the reader sometimes overlooks.
Yeah.
He's a good-looking neurosurgeon. She met on a rooftop in Boston. I mean, like
That was my
That
point.
never
is, like,
happens.
that's my point. Is it's easier to maybe overlook some of the other things when he has so many other redeeming qualities
Yeah.
that you find attractive.
Yeah. Okay, that wraps up our discussion for this book. We have a lot more that we can do. But
I'm
I feel
excited
like,
to find out what's next.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like there is a lot
I need to
more we
branch
gotta
out,
get to.
so.
Okay, so trivia question real quick. When we come back from the break, we're going to have the answer. So before becoming a full-time author, what was Colleen Hoover's profession? Okay? We're going to be right back with the answer. Okay, so we've got our trivia question. Before becoming a full-time author, what was Colleen Hoover's
who said that?
profession? The
Melissa
answer was
did.
a social worker.
I was gonna say lawyer, so I was off.
I never would have known that unless I looked that up. I learned something about Colleen Hoover today.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now is the point in time where we are choosing our next genre and our next book. So we have the Toledo Library here. We have Stephanie from the library joining us. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so I'll let you and everyone else know how we do this is we spin the wheel of genres. It's gonna come up right here behind us, okay? So we're gonna have our director, Tim, spin it for us, and this will choose our next genre. Oh boy.
Like him on TV.
I don't know.
He does now.
This is exciting.
That's
This is Mel's wheelhouse here.
All right.
Yay.
Mel is a big true crime reader.
All right, well, we've got 3 options for you guys to pick from. These came from librarians at the school library, so they're vetted. And I've had read one of these, so I can speak
Now,
to that
are
one.
these, when you say vetted, is this like books that have been really popular, or maybe they're newer and
See, we
trending?
worked with our librarians to come up with a list of titles to send you guys. So they're a mix of different authors, obviously different genres, but books that either our librarians love or are popular with our customers, so they are really great picks.
Awesome.
And there are things that are available also at the library.
Correct, yeah, they're all
right?
available from the library, ebooks, paperback or hardback, with your library card, so.
That's great.
All right, so we've got The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Haley Rubenhold. That book examines the lives of the 5 women believed to have been murdered by Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
We have Under the Banner of Heaven, A Story of Violent Faith by John Krakauer. This was a miniseries a few years ago as well, but it takes a look at the 1984 double murder by 2 brothers who subscribed to a fundamentalist version of Mormonism.
Oh.
Yes, and then the 3rd pick is American Predator, The Hunt for the Most Meticulous Serial Killer of the 21st Century by Maureen Callahan. It's Israel Keyes. He was active from the late 1990s to 2012.
Okay, so you already read
I think I read that one,
Predator?
yeah.
Okay, so we got to take that one out.
We here to read something new.
Nix, right there.
We're lucky I didn't read all 3.
Okay, so The Five or Under the Banner of Heaven. Are we gonna? Do we want to spin it and see what it lands on?
he doing this so
Here we go.
fast?
He
know.
just
Oh my
did one of
God.
them out. All right. Please do the 5.
I know,
Please
I
be
want the 5.
Please be the 5. No. Respin it.
I want the 5.
All right.
No
Under the Banner
respins.
of
Tim told me
Heaven.
no respins. Okay, Under the Banner. What is this one about? This is about
this
the
was,
fundamental Mormons, right?
Yes, so a double murder in 1984 by 2 brothers who subscribed to like a fundamentalist version of Mormonism. It was a miniseries. I believe Andrew Garfield might have been in the miniseries.
So we can do the comparison.
Yeah,
You can watch
yeah.
it. Okay.
I like it.
I'm pretty interested.
This is the point, is that you got to get out of your comfort zone.
Oh, it's not
Try
small town
something
romance.
new. Yes,
I
that's
want
my
to
Yes.
find that one sounded really interesting.
Well, you can read that too.
I might, yeah, I can read that too, for sure.
You can read that one too.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So now you know what the book is. We'll post it. We'll put it in our Facebook group as well, under the banner right there, under the banner of heaven, actually. So
I think you guys you're going to be pleasantly surprised. I think you're going to like it.
Melissa's
I'm going to go
leading
in
the
with an
charge
open
here.
mind.
Right.
About trying new things,
What
expanding
are
our
you
horizons.
hesitant about?
No, I mean, this one actually really excites me because it's true crime. So it's a story about things that have actually happened. So I'll probably be interested. It may take me longer than 4 days, but I'll get through it.
I'm going to need you to be my cheerleader and cheer me on as I'm reading.
You will be fine. Maybe just don't
Alexis.
read it alone at night. I don't know.
See, that's me.
That's why
I
Alexis
don't,
is silent.
I don't do that. It scares me. And this is true stuff.
It's
Yeah.
true.
I'm like, oh great, somebody
It's
did
not
this.
set in Ohio, though, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. See,
good.
we're good.
We have that going for us.
True crime in the news. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Our next episode is actually next week, next Tuesday, May 6th. It'll be streaming on WTOL 11 Plus. We also want you to join the conversation, whether you just finished It Ends With Us or you want to start the new book with us.
And we should put the sequel information
Yeah.
on
Oh,
there.
yeah, it starts with us as
Great.
well. So you can join that conversation. It's well read, well said. WTOL 11 Plus Book Club. That's it.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks so much for having me. Have fun with this next book, and I'll be following along on the Facebook group as well.
Yay. Okay.
All right, that's all we have. Bye.